Hola, 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 hola everybody, yo me llamo Jessie Feliz, and this is Spanish Swag Podcast. Woo! I am here, estoy bien agradecida por estar aquí con mi amiguita Sierra Edgar. Give it up for Sierra! A brand new car! Right. So, you know what you gotta do, support this family, this community of language learners and language educators. So like, subscribe, share, tag, do what you gotta do, right? And again, welcome to Spanish Swag. So, mi amorcita, tell us, cuéntanos por favor, ¿cómo llegaste a ser bilingüe? What has been your bilingual journey? And just tell us all about you.
Okay, it's a long journey. It starts in the first grade. So my mom sent me to the Detroit Waldorf School.
Okay.
So since
Detroit! Okay.
So from first grade through eighth grade, I took Spanish and German languages together. Like, we're just doing both of them. I get two different worlds, kind of that exposure through the cultures of those languages. And so by then I was already really into languages. I thought I was going to be an FBI agent, I'm going to be a translator, and all of these different things, So I went to King High School, KC, and I was in the CISC program, which meant that I got to take Spanish and Chinese at the same time.
Oh, so now this is the fourth language. Inglés, Español, Deutsch, or Alemán, and then now Chino.
Yeah,
right.
So getting that under my belt too. So 4 years of Chinese, 4 years of Spanish, and I just really enjoyed that. But my goal switched from being a FBI agent or a translator into being a teacher. High school is really where I will tutor some of my classmates or things like that, and when I would see that light go off in their heads, you know what I mean? I was like, this is a pretty cool moment.
Yeah.
So since first grade, we've kept the Spanish, right? And so I decided to take that, keep going with that, and then just combine it with this love for teaching that I was, getting. But I would say even when I was little, I used to play with my dolls on the porch, and we used to take roll call and do assignments. So it's been in my blood.
So it's been in your blood for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was there ever any confusion? I think sometimes parents are always concerned, well, can I introduce multiple languages at the same time on mismo tiempo? So you obviously are developing your native English skills, but then you're learning Spanish and then German at the same time. Do you remember ever in elementary school having this confusion between?
No, it wasn't until I got to high school and I would have Spanish and Chinese class back to back, and I'd be like, oh wait, I'm in Spanish class now and not in Chinese class anymore. So I had to deal with that. But when I was little, no, none of that confusion at all. Nothing between English, Spanish, or German that I was confused about. I would say when I was doing elementary education, when I was being educated, that a lot of it was repetition, gameplay, immersion, and things like that. And so it wasn't just worksheets and focusing on that. So I think
it was very age appropriate for how children develop, period.
Exactly. Right? I think that helped me. I think that kind of helps keep some of those lines straight because you're learning it through more than one way, so it becomes a part of you then.
Yeah. And I know I went to Western Michigan, go Broncos, and then Marygrove College. What was then Marygrove College, but you attended La Universidad de Michigan.
Yes, okay. I did.
Go Blue. My sister and brother-in-law was there, so I gotta represent. Okay. Pero, did you major in Español? Major, not minor. Okay.
Yeah,
and education too.
Majored in Spanish, majored in English in the School of Education and the School of Literature, Science, and Arts, and then I also got my education certification for grades K through 12. So I'm certified to teach anybody.
That's what we do. That's what U of M produces. Okay, all that stuff. Okay. And did you have any study abroad experiences?
I did not. And I really, when I was in my classes, I'm like, how are all of these people doing all of this? But I supported myself, okay? When I was going to University of Michigan, I got government grants, we did scholarships, I worked on campus through work study, and so after I finished in the winter of 2011, I took the money that I had saved up to send myself on an experience, you know what I mean? So a Bogotá, Colombia, for 6 weeks.
Tengo muchas ganas de viajar para allá, es que...
Es buenísima,
phenomenal, la gente africana, afrocolombiana vive en el lado pacífico o no? Es más como, no en la ciudad, no hay tanta.
No hay tanta en la ciudad. Yo estaba en la ciudad de Bogotá, so not many.
Yeah. So your experience there, were you perceived as gringa, americana, or did they think that because you were melanated that you were colombiana? Do you remember having any of those instances?
My experiences there were like a bit more limited, so I was volunteering
Okay.
through a program. So like, claro, like all of the kids that I'm volunteering with know that I'm gringa. You know what I mean?
So wait, so you finished, you graduated, and then you did these programs,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you do like a gap year or
No,
short
because I
term?
finished in the winter time. I had like one extra semester between all those programs I was telling you about. So I'm done in December. So January I took off, you know, and when I came back, I started substitute teaching for the rest of that year, and then turned that into a full-time job.
Love it. And you first started teaching at Waldorf.
I actually first started teaching at UPrep. I was at UPA.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was at UPA for 2 years, and I switched over to Waldorf. I went to
If you told me that, se me olvidó.
No. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So 2 years there, 4 years at Waldorf, and then this is my 5th year at UPrep. I'm back with UPrep now.
Yes. Okay. Formerly HFA. Okay. That's where we met. We used to work together. I'm so thankful.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm so thankful that we're together.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh. I'm like the bootleg Spanish teacher Oprah. I promise you. Brand new car. Listen, you know, teaching, you know, having different experiences, but I have to say honestly, aunque solamente había 1 año, 2 años trabajando juntas, I appreciate tú y Saúl también.
Yeah.
I appreciate so much the connection and the authenticity.
Yeah.
And it's just like the gossip in the teacher lounge, you know,
Oh, yeah.
or just the complaining. But like straight up with you, like of course, classroom challenges are classroom challenges.
For sure.
Because we're managing 150, I'm going to say 150,000, but 150
It feels
personality,
like,
right?
yeah.
It feels like 1,000, right? Al mismo tiempo, that's the thing, at the same time, right? But I always love that I felt like we were both rooted in a growth mindset.
Yes.
And we were able to work together. And
Yeah.
I love that.
Because we knew that our kids could do this, and we know that brown and black children can learn a second language.
You got that right.
They can swim, they can speak Spanish, they can do whatever it is that they put their mind to, okay?
Yeah.
And just the warmth that you greeted me with, like, first off the bat, that's what I'm always going to remember. So I'm just
HFA
I'm really glad that we're still here together.
And one thing that I will always remember about you, mi amor, is that day I was observing your room. Listen, y'all, I have to say this because whenever you see, this is something, and I mentioned this with you and Saul, right?
Yeah.
Especially because I'm a teacherpreneur, right? So I still teach, but I'm also a business owner.
Yes.
And I use my teaching as the foundation of what as my commerce. But in business school, they keep talking about, well, what is your unique value proposition? Like, what sets your business apart? What is Walmart versus Target? You know, what versus Kmart back in the day, or Meijer? Why do some people go to Family Dollar versus Dollar General?
Right.
Like, what is this unique? You can have McDonald's, Wendy's, White Castle, Burger King, Rallies, or Checkers, all on the same block.
Somebody's gonna pick one just because of what that person
There we
has.
go.
Yeah.
Aunque cada restaurante anda con la misma hamburguesa más o menos con papas fritas, but people go to this versus that, and so my mindset wants to like help teachers realize, well, what is your unique value proposition? It's not about you trying to be like someone else or someone trying to be like this person. We can all extract, hey, this is a good strategy, or extract this is a good practice.
But there's all something unique that we bring to the classroom. Yeah.
And tying that back in, one of your many unique value propositions is, y'all, I cannot even tell you. It still resonates with me to this day. I love when I came in for Spanish 2 or 3. So Spanish level 3. And our beautiful melanated children from Detroit. So all the teachers out there that say that these kids can't, up in your face, okay?
Yeah.
I clearly remember you all were reading una novela. I think it was basado en Argentina.
Yeah.
And they were reading in the target language an actual text and discussing in the target language, not just answering like even the lower Bloom's taxonomy level questions, but actually engaging in dialogue and expressing literacy skills in the target. You cultivated that environment. The same kids that come from whatever zip codes, that whatever statistics say whatever about them, they are now operating in a different language, separate from their own, and at a high ability level. So
that's making me so proud.
What was it that brought you to, like, how did you cultivate that, first of all? Because that's not what we see. And then Spanish 3 is, you know, a higher level, but it's not AP Spanish, you know, so, and still we have a lot of kids that have different experiences from Spanish 1 and 2. So how did
I never had those kids in Spanish 1 and 2.
Right. And so that's el primer año con ellos. So what did you do to, like, cultivate that to get them to that place in space?
Just bringing high expectations. They know that when they're in Spanish class, they are going to speak Spanish. If you go talk to any of my kids right now, they know that whatever we're doing is going to be in Spanish, or that I'm expecting something Spanish-like, or that I'm expecting work. So that when that class that you saw, we would have those 10, 15 minutes discussions. They're like, so we can't speak in English? I'm like, no, porque estamos hablando en inglés. Like, what's the point of speaking English in Spanish class? Right. And when they know that I know that they can do it, they do it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's it.
And that, transitioning from that amazing experience, and it wasn't a one-time hit or quitter, but I just always remember that time.
Yeah.
I want us now to talk about what we both vibe with. That is, I was about to combine Zaretta and cultural and say Coretta.
I mean,
right.
That's probably
Coretta Scott King, rest in peace, queen. But culture responsive teaching, and we both have been immersed in the text by Zaretta Hammond, and I'm so thankful for the concrete way that she has expressed these foundational principles that every single educator, not just world languages, pero por lo general, everybody. Actually, I'd encourage parents that you need to read this.
Absolutely.
I actually was discussing concepts from this text with a pastor recently, saying, well, how do you think you're reaching the youth if you are only communicating from a lens that serves your generation?
Exactly.
That's not relevant to them.
Right.
And so it's almost as if literally you're speaking a different language. So what are some of your main takeaways from the text, and how does that drive your instructional practices right now?
I think one thing that really stuck out with me is just thinking about the relationship between teacher and student, right? And that this really needs to be the founding principle when we go into our classroom. Like, yes, we are teaching a language, but how are you teaching them if you don't know them? So we have to get to know our children, and knowing them means that we're not seeing them through some kind of fence, you know what I mean? Like, we're on the other side of the fence with them. We're doing all of these things together. And that means letting go of some of our biases.
And being aware that we possess some. Okay. And that goes for everyone.
Everybody.
This is, I think, oftentimes because of the historical and current injustices in this country, it's very easy to mix up black and white. And then to generalize one group of people. Pero cada persona, each one of us, cada uno de nosotros, we have these prejudices and biases, right? Yeah. And being mindful of that ourselves at the same time while we're seeking out to learn, about others. Because how are we going to sit up here and want to teach the soft skill of empathy to our students if we ourselves are not developing it?
Exactly. And how can you model it even for our students? So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, because kids, they are the best readers. They know the authenticity meter. It's like, she's groaning, she's fake. They're the type of people I just like. Okay, I want to say, hey, okay. But it's for real.
But they feel it's okay when they walk in the room. They know, they can feel what their teachers think about them. You can sugarcoat it any way you want to. But if you don't like your students, you don't trust your students, you don't think that your students have the ability, they're reading that off of you because you're sharing that all with your students through the way that you're teaching them.
I will not say when, where, however, whatever happens.
Yeah, you know.
But oftentimes when I do professional development, I walk around, I monitor the discussions, I engage, pero sometimes I just receive input. Yeah. And so I happened to hear a Spanish language educator clearly say, these kids don't want to learn. And I said, well, let me show some grace. It's the end of the year. We're frustrated. Trust me, burnout is real. It is. I said, let me circle around the room and come back. And then I heard that same educator say, well, they don't, and these, and they were just separating themselves from the equation. And that's the biggest part. Like, you are, like, honestly, the most, I don't want to say most important, as if you're más importante que ellos, but more like, you are such an important, essential variable in this equation, regardless if administration sucks. But like separate from everything that's happening on living at a societal level. What is happening within the four walls of your classroom? And let's talk about this. 70% of communication is nonverbal. Yes. So when you're talking about people walking into a room, and they can read the energy, they can read what's going on? 1 second, real talk. I have my daughter. Habichuela, en serio. Por favor, estoy trabajando, mami. Sí. Okay, so real life, mom life, right? And so at the same time, if it's nonverbal, and this is really like convicting me, just like in whatever relationships, you know, it's almost like, so what, this is what we're developing more, and we're going to talk about this at the Spanish Speaker Symposium coming up, that woke, consciously be aware of what you're saying. It's like, at the superficial level, it was like, okay, am I being mindful if I'm asking you, ¿cómo estás? Not ¿cómo te llamas? Am I actually present in the moment? And it was more at the superficial level. Now I want us to dig deeper. The way that I'm expressing myself, verbally or non-verbally, what am I saying?
Exactly. And I went to a workshop about that, and a lot of the times our students mirror. So when we're giving this nonverbal communication, they're mirroring it back to us, and it's just natural. That's just what humans naturally do. And so I think that's just something important to think about in our communication too. So when we're talking about what students can't do or won't do, what are we not doing for our students to help engage them and connect with them in this classroom?
Yes, because I don't know, it seems easier to point the blame. You know, I always tell people, what's that phrase? Oh, I'm pointing out what you got going on. I remember growing up, my grandmother would say, okay, while you pointing out what somebody else had to say, boom, boom, boom. Three, y el pulgar arriba es para el altísimo. So real talk, check yourself before you wreck yourself. And again, that is not excusing undesirable behavior. That's not excusing that sometimes we do not get the support from administration. I'm not saying that because I think sometimes it's more easy to get caught up on those things, but it's still ignore lo que hacemos nosotros. And so that's just like the part of it too. And
you can really curb a lot of those things if you are coming to the students, and those students will go to the mat for you 1,000%. If I feel off, you know, I'm sick, I'm like, you know what? It's not y'all, it's me, and I love you, but today's not my day. They're like, you know what, Edgar, we got you. You need something to drink? You need some water? You need a pillow?
That's called care and compassion.
You know?
Right?
And they have that in them, all of them.
So I also want to talk about, we talk a lot about like relationship building, obviously, and being authentic and showing up and being consistently, naturally who you are. Let's talk about this concept of culture.
Okay.
And Zaretta Hammond talks, So Zaretta Hammond talks about that your culture is your brain software. And that is just like one of like, right? It's so concrete, but it's perfectly, you know, it's not abstract, but if you're not in a growth mindset to receive that, but literally, and so I think we talk a lot about, you know, getting to know your students. Don't assume because you have someone that's melanated in your classroom and they can check off the race box of black, that whatever you perceive to be black or blackness, that is this child's identity.
Exactly.
You still have to get to know the individuals in your room, and there will be shared cultural values
for sure
that are based off your experience as a black person, but that's not necessarily the case para todos.
Exactly. And some people just don't subscribe to that. They're like, that's cool, like, but I don't listen to rap, I don't like this food, I don't do this activity. I actually like K-pop. And okay,
so your current kids, I had them right at one point, or at least the seniors. So who you've had. I'm so happy you brought up K-pop. So for y'all that don't know, I love using hip-hop music, movement, beats para reforzar el vocabulario y la gramática. That is my whole, trust me, that book is coming out, hooking with the beat. We working on these things. Hey. But look, poco a poco, I'm planning on these semillas, right?
Pre-order.
Right. Pre-order here, paypal.com. It's like, no. Pero, I clearly remember the seniors right now. And all my years from Baltimore, un año en Tejas, back here in Detroit, virtual, in person, Costa Rica, you know, because that's not just my preference, and I don't necessarily like all the lyrics. Actually, a lot of the lyrics are like, I love the beat. It's the rhythm, you know, like that's what I connect with. And so I'm like, wait a minute, if you're like, and I go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So like, I'm going to the beat. And so most of the kids, the energy, that's part of my unique value proposition.
Exactly.
I am not that's what I bring, and that's authentically part of me. And I do that all the time. I'm not the visual artist, right? Like that would not be my unique value proposition.
Right.
It doesn't mean I can't do something, but I'm like, no, let's watch Art for Kids Hub, right? Let me pay respect to. Pero I clearly remember the current seniors, whatever song I was using with them, and a large group of students in this one class. I also had them for a crew, so like our homeroom kind of group. I clearly remember they weren't vibing to one of my songs, and I was like, hold up, this is Ace Hood, how are you not vibing, right? And I'm like, everybody else like this song for the alphabet. I'm an intro to Spanish teacher, that's like mi corazoncito, getting them hooked to learn the language and bought into the swag, right? Yes. Well, anyway, I noticed something was off, and so me stepping out of even my own preferences, right? Or what my benchmark for a successful engagement level is with kids, I started thinking, well, wait a minute, what do I know? What are some trends I noticed about this class? Yeah. And that specific group, they were K-pop. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean they didn't know that song by Chris Brown, but that, again, we talked about earlier, like the cultures, there's a lot of blending now. It's not so, oh, this is only Black American, and this is Asian American, or this is Hispanic American. There's a lot of blending, and it's more like, it relies kind of like how the algorithms are. Like, it matches you to your interests, and you follow the individual based on the expression or personification of whatever that interest is. And so I noticed, I was like, you know what, let me do a trial and error. Let me just put on an instrumental of some BTS. Okay. Teaching the same, and for that specific class.
They lit up.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Now, I could have missed an opportunity to connect and to strengthen my connection with the kids, as well as like reinforce the vocabulary in a more meaningful way if I only wanted to do it my way.
Exactly.
Even if all other 5 classes, this was a vibe for that one class, by literally changing the song. Yeah. Because it speaks their language. Yes. The buy-in factor was like, shoot.
Goes way up. And I think some people get really freaked out when we talk about knowing your students, because they're like, how am I going to know 150 students in 1 year? But I love what you said about noticing the trends, okay? I'm not saying not to get know to your students, but like there's some people who you might not connect with as much throughout the year, but realizing those trends really helps in the classroom to just kind of how to follow and what to do next with your kids, and like what will work and what might not work.
Yes. With that also, again, even when it's like shared or collective trends or behaviors, then even thinking about down to the individual abilities and strengths and preferences. So, you know, we're raised and we even teach this concept of extrovertido versus introvertido. And so we have this label of being an introvert versus extrovert. Right. But I wish there was a way they could have like the kids version of it, the Myers-Briggs. Like the full, I remember when I taught in Texas, shout out to Prep Public Schools and Teaching Excellence. I grew, the professional growth that I experienced in that 1 year was like I can't even, it's unmeasurable, right?
We're going to talk about that. So I'm at Public Schools.
Yeah, but I was an instructional coach, and that, but yeah, that's another thing. Okay. But that's a plug. Check out Prep Public Schools in Houston, Texas. Okay, but what I do remember is they really wanted us to shift our mindset of thinking about, I'm an extrovert, or I'm an introvert, to then thinking about, I prefer extroversion. This is the way that I naturally prefer to express and to process. Someone else may equally be processing the information, but if they're not the child that raises their hand, you're marking them down and thinking, you don't participate. Right. So now I have to not be who I am naturally am, right? Like how I naturally process to fit this mold of I have to raise my hand to then express myself verbally. When there may be, I never forget, like all the primeramente do now activities, there were some students who would be so quick when it came time to share. But other kids, the ones that don't want to, they're writing párrafos of like the prompt to whatever the journal prompt is. Whereas the kid who wants to express themselves like me may only have 1 or 2 sentences because we're so excited to get it out. Yeah.
And Zaretta Hammond talks about that amygdala hijack and like the stress, you know, like our brains can just get, just drenched in this cortisol, and you can't take in any processing and learning. So when we're taking people out of their natural preferences for learning, then you're stressing them out and you're lowering what they can take in during that class. So we're really doing a disservice by trying to fit them into that mold within the class setting. Differentiation. Come on now. And I say it like it's easy. It's not. I'm not saying differentiation is easy. It's not. Okay.
It's a little miniature little mic drop. Little microfonito. But it really is.
We have to strive for it for sure. We have to.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think if we know that as educators, it's not just how we feel, but facts. We are underpaid and we are sadly undervalued,
yes.
which is the reason why we're underpaid.
Right.
But really the undervaluing is like deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes we can let that external perception of us affect us and take away that, wait a minute, we are actually in the field.
Yeah.
You know, we're actively, like, think about a professor.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that's different, it's more, but all professors are still supposed to be conducting active research,
exactly.
publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, for teachers, it's like, wait a minute, am I actually a reflective practitioner? But more than just on an emotional level,
mm-hmm.
am I actually, like, realizing, wait a minute, this is an art. There are skills, so
yes.
there is a science to teaching.
Yes.
But it's an art. So am I actively pausing for the cause
yes.
and recognizing, you know what, the class after lunch or B period, 25%
mm-hmm.
did well on this exit ticket.
Right.
Yet this other group did exceptionally well. I'm the same teacher, I'm the same content,
right.
but possibly there's some disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Am I pausing to recognize that, or am I just so caught up on, oh, it's another day? You know, like,
yeah.
So what you guys say about that?
Just that I'm in the national board process right
now.
now.
Yes, we got a new national board certification right here. She almost done, Jakasi.
On the way. Okay?
Yes.
And when you said just being a reflective practitioner, okay, that is in every single component that I have to do. That is one of the most important things that we're doing as practitioners, is to reflect on our practice. And they straight up say that, I don't know what page number it is, but that everything can be improved. Okay?
Yes.
And so when you're talking about looking at these different classes and getting that vibe and like, why didn't this work, you know, those are steps that we have to take. Even with my classes today, one of my classes was a little down. I'm just like, what is happening? Like, we need a temperature check. Like, you guys are normally up and ready, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know what? It's this thing today. And I'm like, oh, I understand now. Okay, so I can adjust, you know, to make it feasible. Because some days are just hard for the kids and for everybody. So
when you saw the adjustment, I heard a speaker saying, deeper than saying that, oh, I'm available, it's better to say, oh, I'm flexible.
Yes.
Because if you're not flexible,
what's the point?
What's the point? Because again, and this goes across subject areas.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, that's why it's like, okay, the art form of teaching versus this scientific form.
Yeah.
But you can have all the so-called steps in the lesson plan and the template and all the worksheets and all this stuff.
Right.
But there's a art
and then putting that all together.
Because you're managing how many personalities, in addition to you being a human being.
Yeah.
And your own preferences and things, life, while you're lifing.
Okay.
You also, you know, because there's so many, and yes, I think it's like, it's really our mindset. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are so many different roles we are playing. Mm-hmm. Facts. Yes, we're unsupported at different levels. Facts. But yes, at the same time, you still can like have some magia escolar.
Yeah.
That was my original business name back in like 2010 in Baltimore.
Okay.
Magia escolar. What is the school magic that is cultivated, curated?
Right.
Thank you, Issa Rae. That's the only reason I know that word, curator. But like but I love that concept of like curating. No matter what ingredients you put together, once you have that resin and it's out in the sun, it curate, curar. Yeah. What are you curing? Like this, like what are you doing? Because this is more than the content area that you teach.
Yeah, you're bringing in a lot of things, and everything has its place. So sometimes you put something in the mix and everything blows up. Yeah. Okay, so it's an experimentation. Like, so you want brujita or something like that. Right. Like, I can mess up my potion some days. Like, everything doesn't always work out. But back to this reflection again. Back to our cultural responsiveness. You know what I mean? Back to accountability on all of our parts. When we go back and check those things out, then how can we improve it for the next day? Today didn't work, but tomorrow's gonna be different. So
what you just said tells me that while we have this buzz term cultural responsiveness, what it actually is responding to the culture of your students.
Right.
And that's so much more than just you making an assumption based off their phenotype.
Right. And I mean, we really need to talk about the fact that culture is not equal to race.
No.
Those two are not the same thing.
Nada, not at all.
Just for anybody who's needing that like basic, work up from the bottom on those are not the same thing. And people of the same race don't necessarily all share the same culture.
Not at all. And
like, we're just in Atlanta. Atlanta culture for black people is down.
It's
different than Detroit
totally
culture
different.
here, than Baltimore culture. You know what I mean?
Totalmente. But I'm gonna tell you what Meredith Ward said, and then even deeper than even what that shared regional culture is, whether it's race that's involved with it or not, is your home culture.
Yeah. Because
that's real. That's microcosm.
Yeah.
That is like your initial molding, shaping point of the way you view the world, right?
Ooh, me and the kids talked about that last year. Yes, and just your initial shaping of the world, and how many things does that shape? Your religion, what you eat, what you wear, who you talk to, how you speak. Okay, what gum you even eat. Okay, what team you cheer for. We're Lions fans in this house.
Right.
We're Michigan fans in my house. Let me bring in the Ohio State stuff about my house. We're not doing it.
So, I mean, but it's little, even though that may seem like, oh, that's nothing, but imagine that's also setting the standard of, if one is going to college, like that's the expectation.
Yeah, that's part of the culture too. That's part of the culture.
Yeah.
That was a huge part of the culture in my house. You were going to school.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
That was it. And so I did.
And you hear, and it doesn't make a difference, like hearing it from little chiquitito up all the way up. Like, that home culture, the generation in which you emerge, muy importante. And I'm going to say this phrase because I know you are one of the many people, well, let me say, you are one of the many awesome people, but you're one of the few people that I know can receive it. When we talk about humanizing, not just a language learning, just humanizing our interactions with each other.
Thank you.
Right? Is really a way to decolonize.
Oh, yeah.
So many, I know people don't like that word, but really, but you know, when you think about, I was like reflecting like, okay, even when we say the Spanish conquistadors in that colonizer tone, right?
Yes.
Like los conquistadores, like people that came from one place, and it's not limited to la gente de España. Like this is like todo de Europa, right? Like let's just keep it real. But this concept of colonizing is, I bring my ethnocentric demeanor to a new environment and do not take in consideration that environment, the people, the perspectives, the structures, and what I bring supersedes the environment. So when I'm talking about humanizing the way we interact with children, humanizing our planning, our assessing, like, am I doing this and I'm colonizing this curriculum? Am I colonizing the curriculum that I teach? Am I colonizing like the assessment? Am I colonizing the physical environment? Now this does not mean, I think when we hear student-centered, we could get turned off like, well, what about me? No, you are part of this equation too.
For sure.
But are you colonizing?
Exactly. Are you taking over the experience? Are you running the whole thing without considering the children that you're teaching?
So that's my question to everyone and to myself. Am I colonizing the learning experience? I want to share this other story, and then I want to hear a little bit more about National Award from you, mi amor.
I'm just still on my last question. Yes, go ahead.
I think that's going to be the quote on Instagram. So that's going to be like,
that was your mic drop.
That's why, like, am I colonizing the curriculum that I teach? That's a Jessie Feliz reflective practitioner quote. Okay. But like, I'm even thinking about how, and this is as una persona afroamericana that has worked primarily with chiquitos afroamericanos. So this is not even, so shared racial experiences, but that doesn't mean culturally exactly the same.
Right.
So I noticed this as in the field of experience teaching in Baltimore in person, as well as my virtual classes. I still have kids that are from Baltimore. And one thing I love about that Baltimore Mid-Atlantic energy is that, and it's the East Coast, like people they advocate for themselves.
Oh yeah.
Right? You know, like they let you know. They advocate, and that's a good thing. And so I have one student, bright young lady, she now's in el cuarto grado. And even virtually, and I think about this porque es de Baltimore, and it makes me think about when I was in Baltimore as well teaching. And we'll be in the middle of a lesson learning whatever the topic is, she speaks right out.
That-
She's not, her natural instinct is not to put the hand emoji or to say excuse me, and it's not being rude.
No.
Like she literally would say, wait a minute, but does that mean that too?
Ooh, it sounds like my kids.
But imagine, you know,
Yeah.
but imagine that. And so like now, of course you gotta have stuff in order, you know,
Yeah, for
we
sure.
can't all be yelling out like how they show like the British Congress all the time.
Yeah.
That can't, you gotta have a process. But imagine if I immediately colonize this experience and I'm, you know what? You're being rude.
Right.
And I'm shutting this girl down. And now
Right.
I'm at the same time dismissing her natural intrinsic motivation
Yeah.
to want to inquire.
And it's like to shut that down, like to shut down the inquiry process for students, like you're killing some of the joy in the classroom
Yeah.
doing that. And it had you shut her down, how safe in your classroom would she have felt to like say something the next time? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so sometimes all it takes is one time to shut
Yeah.
our students down.
Yeah. And I know some people say, well, what happens when one person says something that, and, you know, I think maybe a novice teacher or a teacher that may have some more challenges with like behavior management.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what if everyone does this? Well, wait a minute,
Right.
We got to look, we're not going to isolate this one situation. Again, it's what environment are you curating?
Right.
And it's not about perfection,
No.
but as I learned again, teaching, told you teacher excellence, it was an explosion of professional development. They would always say the phrase, practice doesn't yield perfect. Practice yields permanence.
Yeah.
So
that's what we're looking for.
What am I saying non-verbally, allowing, what am I curating that is now permanently being etched as this is paid? This is what happens in this classroom.
Right.
You know?
Right. And it can be stressful as I remember those years. I wouldn't do it over again. I'm glad that I'm here now, but it can be stressful to be in those situations and feel like you're losing total control. You know what I mean? And I think that for me, it was important to be able to gain control, to let go of control. But the end game is letting go and putting the learning into the students' hands, you know? And so if my students want to get up there and teach and they want to start the class off and greet everybody, we have cultivated that into the classroom. Somebody, well, can I do the introduction today? You sure can. Come on up. Because I know the stuff that I'm teaching them. And so why not let them do the work so that we can get that permanence?
Yes, I love it. Okay, so briefly tell us, where are you at along this journey with National Board? What can we do to support you? Do we got to say some prayers?
Please just say some prayers. Like, I need it. I got an email today to our whole cohort. Like, we're sure you're feverishly writing. Yes, okay. I've pulled my husband into the mix now. Like, he's over there editing for me with his Virgo stuff. He's all in details. Like, wait, exactly what does this mean? I'm like, well, let me explain to you. If like it doesn't make sense, I need to know, you know? So there are 4 different components. 3 of them are writing components. So differentiation was one of the components. What am I doing in the classroom to advance language learning is another component, and within the district and within the school, right? And then the component that I'm working on right now is, what does my classroom space look like, feel like, sound like? Is it safe? Is it equitable? Is learning occurring? You know, and so sending in those videos and analyzing that and reflecting on it and seeing.
Are those videos something? Are those videos something to see yourself with third person observation of yourself? Yeah.
I'm not mad though. My kids, they showed up and they showed out for me because they know that I care about them, and so it really touched my heart because after I finished the second video, one of the recorder was just telling the kids like, "You guys did so great. This is excellent." And one of the kids was like, "I only did this because it was Sr. Edgar." Tears. Okay, like I'm just like, I love you so much.
But that's authenticity, because kids know who phony.
He's phony. She's fake. That's the type of people I.
Wait a minute. This journey, ¿cuánto más tiempo?
Everything is due by May 17th. I take a test on how much do I know about teaching Spanish language. That would be on June 13th. I take mine. I gotta take that speaking test that I was talking to you about. As well as showing that I excel in all of those areas, I need to show board educators too that I excel in my own understanding of Spanish, how to use it, when to use it, you know, all these different forms, these different words, you know. So estoy practicando mucho con Martinez. Like, mi saludo, like, solo estamos hablando en español. Only speaking in the Spanish because I need to get my, you know, because I'm clear with the kids. I am a second language learner as well when it comes to Spanish. I'm like, so everything I'm teaching you, I'm doing it because I've done it and it has helped
Yes.
me learn.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So let's just keep it real. Let's keep it a buck. Like, I'm like, nadie en mi familia habla español, okay? Like,
Let them know.
I'm the Spanish speaker in my family, okay?
Yeah.
Mama, no, she like, uno, dos, tres. Like, my brother has forgotten most of his. He did have it for a while. And my husband, he is learning more. The longer we're together, the more Spanish he's learning. So,
Black love wins.
you know.
And so, okay, May, June deadline. So, are you thinking by the fall /
By
December.
December, our results are coming out. So,
Okay.
keep updated on.
Girl, when I tell you we are going to turn up
all the
in the most
way.
professional way possible.
Claro que sí.
Right? I'm just so proud of you. Like, felicitaciones de antemano. I mean, you're gonna. You represent Black girl magic, like, on so many different levels.
And that's just why I'm really glad to be here with you today, because you do the same thing, and like knowing that you still mess with me, you know what I mean? Like, we're out here doing this together, like growing in all these different ways.
Isn't it a beautiful thing, like, to grow?
It's mafia, okay?
I know, that's the, it's about money now.
You know?
It really is, and it's just like, that's why I really want to hone in, like, we each have a unique value proposition.
Yeah.
Like, yours is not mine, mine is not yours, but we can each support one another, you know, so that we could all, like, get it. We could all eat, as they say.
Okay.
We can all eat at the table, okay? You know, and I love it. It's just like being our authentic, organic selves and just learning, laughing, because you got to laugh in this profession. If you do not
laugh, you're going to cry. And then nobody got time for tears.
I got thug tears.
Okay, because I be back to let my hands pull out.
Right, I got my thug tears. The Spanish swag, they have
I
no
done
tears.
had my thug tears some days, you know, but we're going to pull it back together.
Shed so many tears. Rest in peace, King. King Tupac, that is. But yeah, so te quiero muchísimo. I'm so proud of you. Bien orgullosa de ti, mi amor. Gracias, mi amorcita. And I'm just excited to see the 2.0, the 3.0, the 4.0, like, cause it's just
el crecimiento.
Yes, it's el desarrollo. I love it, and it's just a beautiful thing. So nothing but love to you. Love you muchísimo, everyone. Please. Oh, what's your social media handle on Instagram so you can follow this?
At S.W.A.G Edgar. That's my Spanish profile over there.
All right, follow her on Instagram. You know you can follow Jessie Feliz Plus, and that's JESSIE FELIZ. Now no X, because ain't nobody know Felix up in here. You're like, oh, Jessica Felix? No, Jessica Feliz. I always say Feliz, but Felix. Did you not hear me say Z as in zebra? And plus, right? Jessie Feliz Plus, because you always want a little get un poquito más with me than what you think you are. I don't want anybody.
Oh, I like that.
That's my thing.
I like that.
First I tried to jack off, jack off of Disney Plus, ESPN Plus. I was like, no, Plus, because you always going to get a little bit more than what you think, right? So gracias, mi amor, por haberse tomado tiempo de pasar un rato con nosotros. I'm so happy for everything that you're doing, and love you mucho. Love y'all. Follow, share, tag, like, do what you do to like, follow, share. See, I put everything to a song. My whole life was a podcast. Okay, right. Okay, os quiero mucho. Ciao.